Kneel down and praise the almighty Squire, the ultimate of the Dungeon Defenders champions. Truly, the one man who can solo any dungeon with his walls of massive HP, his harpoons of piercing death, and his bowling balls of awesomeness. The Squire knew no match until one day the nerf hammer came and smited the mighty Squire and nerfed his DPS into oblivion. Truly a shame.
Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Professor Vicious, and welcome to the very first episode of Dungeon Defenders Noob School. This is a little requested thing. I kind of mentioned I might try out, and a lot of people were saying, yes, do it. So this is the first episode, and being that, let me tell you about the series just a little bit real quick. What Dungeon Defenders Noob School is going to be is it's going to be an explanatory series where I kind of break game basics down into fundamental principles and try to help you learn how to be better at the game and just explain things you might not know. So it's going to be very useful for new players, but even experienced players might find something they can gain from it. So far, I've kind of got like a plan laid out as far as how I'm going to do it. The first 4 episodes are going to be about the 4 major heroes we have right now. Going to explain the different roles they fill, tell you about their towers and how they're useful, different build options. So basically all about the heroes. Then after those first 4 episodes, then I'm going to do the same thing for the maps. I'm going to go into each map, explain the map, explain the choke points, explain different strategies you can use to beat that map. And that's all I have planned for right now, but I'm sure I can come up with more material as time progresses because there will be new maps and new heroes and things coming through DLC. So as far as releasing these videos, I also have a plan for that as well. This is not part of my normal Let's Play series. I don't have a whole lot of time on hand, so the series is going to be directly related to popularity. I have set a goal for 5,000 views for each video, and whenever one of the Dungeon Defenders Noob School videos hits 5,000 views, that's when I start working on the next episode. So you guys can help get these out faster by sharing the link with your friends, posting it on the forums, rating it up with a thumbs up, and we'll go from there. So today's episode, let's get started. Meet the Squire. The Squire is the tank of the 4 heroes. As you know, any hero can have 3 builds more or less. You can have a hero build, which is where you're focused on mostly your health, your attack, your speed, and your casting rate in most cases, or your abilities. That's when you don't build towers, you go around killing stuff. The Squire makes a good hero because his HP is just insane. Even without putting any points into it, I have almost 3,000 HP. Where the Squire falls short as a hero, in my opinion, is that he is the only hero out of all 4 that has no ranged attack, and he also has the slowest movement speed. So even with a 73 movement speed currently, he's not nearly as fast as any of my other heroes. So he can take a lot of damage as a hero, but I find that the other heroes with less HP still hold out just fine because you kill stuff so fast, and if you're a good player, you stay out of the attack range of your enemies, and you don't take the damage in the first place. As a hybrid build, he does really well. If you like the hybrid build, if it's your first character, I would actually go with hybrid because there is diminishing returns on stats. Once you get to a certain soft cap, you start to really lose benefit from stats, and you can still keep stacking it and it will still keep improving, but due to the diminishing returns, you do want to balance out your stats if you're trying to go for optimal efficiency. And then last but not least, the tower build, where you focus on your tower stats the most. This is my preferred build for the Squire, and I think you'll see more Squires built like this than any other, because he fills the role of your defensive builder. He has the walls that have the largest defense and HP pool, so it will help bolster your defenses against the enemy onslaught like ogres and things. So introductions aside, let's go ahead and go to a map so we can start talking about the towers. We'll go to Glitter Helm is fine. Let's grab a little bit of mana. Okay, so the Squire has in his arsenal of towers a spike blockade, a bouncer blockade, a harpoon, a bowling ball turret, and a slice and dice blockade. So all these blockades, these are defensive structures that are made to hold mobs back so they can't pass through a certain area. They're space control is what they do. 3 defense units for the spike blockade, and 4 defense units for the balancer blockade. I want to talk about these two first. Which one is better and why? First of all, know that the spike blockade is the strongest wall. With my current stats right now, this wall has almost 12,000 HP versus the balancer blockade, which has almost 8,000 HP. So that's quite a bit of difference. That's, if you broke it into 4,000 HP, this has 2/3 versus this. So why would you choose one or the other? Well, I think on maps where you have ogres and you're holding off ogres, you want to go with the spike blockade because it has more HP, especially when you're combining it with elements like monk auras, like the strength down aura. It's going to last longer, and its whole purpose is simply to be defensive. You're not trying to kill units with it because you're going to have probably mage towers or something else behind it doing all the damage. The bouncer blockade, however, actually does quite a bit of damage. It does almost 3,000 damage per hit every 1 second. So it does damage and it pushes enemies back. So even though it has less HP, it'll be taking less hits because it'll be often pushing mobs back away from itself. So it can last just as long as the spike in certain situations. But like I previously mentioned, ogres don't get bounced back, so they're going to beat the living crap out of the bouncer a lot faster. Archers don't care about the bouncer because they're going to stand back and just shoot at it, and summoners don't care because they'll just keep summoning skeletons at it. So I find that depending on the map, you can use one or the other. If you're dealing with those advanced mobs that don't care about the bouncer and they just beat it away, I recommend the spike. But the situational thing for the bouncer blockade is whenever you're on environmental hazards. Certain stages, if you place a bouncer in the right spot, like if I was to put one like off to the side here, there is a very, very good chance that a lot of the mobs spawning from that direction could be wandering this way, and they're going to get bounced right into the lava and die instantly. So you have to think of environmental kills when you're going with the balancer. That can actually be a really great benefit. Now let's talk about the offensive towers. Even though I mentioned in my little funny intro that the DPS of the Squire has been nerfed significantly from what it used to be, he still has a valid role in the DPS towers. The harpoon turret, it costs quite a bit of defensive units at 6 units, but its special ability is that it pierces through mobs. So when you would want to use this is exactly where I'm standing right now, on situations that are going to force mobs into a straight line. In this spawn point, when all the mobs are crossing over the bridge, they're going to be in a straight line. If you have yourself a spike blockade blocking this bridge off, all the mobs are going to get crammed up on that bridge, and one harpoon, even though it does less damage per hit than say a mage's fireball tower, because it's going to pierce through and hit every single mob, the damage per second in total is actually going to be very much higher and make this tower worth its defensive unit cost. The bowling ball turret, however, is a environmental weapon in my opinion. It has some physics properties applied to the bowling balls that come out of it. They are affected by gravity and by terrain. So if there's something in the way, like if it's a wall or something, it'll bounce off the wall. But they also do really, really, really well when placed on top of steep staircases, which is the only time I would use them. If placed on staircases, as soon as the bowling ball launches, it will gain momentum by going downhill, and when it hits mobs, it can hit multiple mobs doing lots of damage similar to the harpoon, and it does significant knockback. So it can actually control space very well, similar to how your walls control space. If you have a small staircase, not one so wide like this, and you put 2 or 3 cannons on top of it, pretty much no mobs in the game can get up that space. It will hold everything back while killing it. So the only drawback really in that situation is that they're just expensive on defense units. They cost 7 defense units each. So using 2 is usually good. Going for 3 at a choke point can be kind of expensive. So be wise about that. Probably put 2 and then maybe a mage tower. And the very last tower that we have is the slice and dice blockade. This used to be, and it still is I guess, probably the most popular tower in the game. When I was new, everybody used these. Of course they were better before they were nerfed. But this is a combination of a DPS tower and a wall in one. As you know, I'm sure, when enemies get close to it, it starts to spin and rotate, and as it picks up speed, it starts to rotate faster and faster, and the blades just slice through everything. So any melee mob that gets within range of this thing is going to get cut to smithereens. But honestly, I'll tell you, I'm not a big fan of slice and dice. There's only a few situations in the game where I would use them, simply because they cost 8 defense units, and they're vulnerable to the same things I mentioned about the bouncer blockades damage. Summoners aren't going to care, they'll just keep throwing skeletons at it. Archers aren't going to care, they'll shoot arrows at it. Ogres, you know, they have so much HP that while they're going to get sliced up, they're just going to do so much damage to it so quickly. So honestly, I don't really use the slice and dice very much, because even though it does a lot of damage, it does not have a lot of life at all. Only 8,500 life. So what I would much prefer to do as far as defenses, spend 3 units on a spike blockade, and then spend your 6 units on a harpoon behind it. Or if you're mixing classes, put some mage towers behind a spike blockade. I think it's much more efficient in the long run than a slice and dice. Alright, so we've got towers out of the way. Next thing to talk about is building your character. What's important and why when it comes to the Squire. The abilities, you have Circular Slice, which is an area of effect attack that hits any mobs directly around your character. Something useful for a hero build. And you have Blood Rage. Blood Rage is a really nice skill that will double your attack and speed while it's in use. What I recommend for a build, if you're going with towers, defense health is my primary stat because I consider him the defensive builder. He's the guy who's going to have the walls in the front. I want the walls to do is to take as much damage as possible, so the defense health is the most important thing. Secondary stat is going to be the damage, because even though he is my defensive builder, if I'm going to be using a slice and dice, if I'm going to be using harpoons or bowling balls, I still want them to do a good amount of damage to the mobs to make them worth their high defensive unit cost. The area of effect, which is going to affect the range, is important, but I wouldn't boost it past your 70 hero points. When it comes to upgrading your equipment and you're adding on extra points, I would just stick with health and base damage, and just let any natural equipment stats go into range. And the same goes for attack rate. Attack rate is how fast the towers are going to attack. It's only going to affect the harpoon, the bowling ball, and the slice and dice. I find that with the 70 points invested into it from the start, that everything attacks more than quick enough, and it's not worth investing any more of your points into it. If you're going to go for a hero Squire, health is your friend. Definitely get some health, and then definitely max out your attack damage. I would put all of my equipment points into damage, because he's already got so much health from just the idea that he's the Squire, that there's really no need to boost it beyond your 70 points. All of your equipment put into attack. Speed, you definitely want to max out because he's a very slow character. And casting rate, this is up to you. Are you going to be a hero that goes around upgrading and repairing things? Or are you going to be a hero that goes around killing everything and let someone else take care of the defenses? If you're going to go kill everything, max out Blood Rage. If you're going to go repair stuff, max out casting rate. Weapon wise, if you're a hero build, go for the base damage, because base damage on weapons scales with your hero damage stat. If you're a tower build like my character is, I recommend you actually go ahead and upgrade elemental on a weapon if you find one with a good elemental, because elemental does not scale with hero damage. Therefore, it can still do full damage even as a tower build, and you can rely on your towers to kill anything that's immune to that element. The other thing I recommend is that if you're going to go for a hero build, get high resistances on your armors. This is a tower build, so I don't have high resistances here, but if you get everything up into 70% or above, especially focus on generic and fire, that's going to improve your survivability greatly. Your HP won't really matter so much anymore when you're taking so little damage, and if you get a pet fairy, you're basically invincible. That's how I would beat Monster Fest on Insane, is have like a 90% damage resistance and these at least 50%, put a fairy on and just go kill everything and never take any damage. So that, I think, is going to conclude the very first episode of Dungeon Defenders Noob School. This is going to be a Q&A thing because this is the first episode. I didn't have any questions. So what you want to do is post any questions you have for the next episode in the comments. I'll pick about 10-15 of them and answer them in the next episode. The next episode will be the Huntress. So meet the Huntress. Any questions you have about Huntress stuff, ask it in the comments and I'll be answering it in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.